and this is lecture number 4, that is topic number 4 of 6 from the unit 4, and this is the part B. Part A already discussed, we know all the things. So here we will talk about the activation record. In the previous we have talked about activation tree. Now here we will talk about activation record. So activation record, the procedure call and return are usually managed by runtime stack called control stack, and each live activation has an activation record, sometimes it is known as frame, on the control stack with the root of activation tree at the bottom, and entire sequence of activation record on the stack corresponding to the path in activation tree to the activation where the control currently resides. Later activation has its record at top of the stack. Now activation, for activation record we will consider this example. This example was discussed in the previous lecture. So this was the activation tree representing the call duration during an execution of the quick sort. So if the control is currently in activation q2 comma 3, so we are talking about this part q2 comma 3 of the tree in figure 7.4. This is the figure 7.4. Then the activation record q2 comma 3, so we are talking about q2 comma 3, is at the top of the control stack, so it will be on the top of the control stack. Now here you can see this is the top of the control stack q2 comma 3 activation record, so this will be the top of the stack, and just below the activation record q1 comma 3, the parent of 2 comma 3, so parent of 2 comma 3 is q1 parent of 2 comma 3 is q1 comma 3. So this will be just below the activation record, that is the activation record of q1 comma 3, and below that activation record q1 comma 9. So 1 comma 9, the parent of 1 comma 3 is q1 comma 9, so obviously it will be just below q1 comma 9 part here. And finally activation record of m, so this is the bottom of stock m stack m, then activation record of q, activation record of q, activation record of q 1 comma 9. So this is the activation record stored in the stack form. So this is the stack, you can say that. We can conventionally draw the control stack with bottom to the high bottom of the stack higher than the top. So elements in activation record appears lowest on the page are actually closest to the top of the stack. The content of activation record vary with the language being implemented. The following figure shows the list of kinds of data that might appear in the activation record. So activation record can be like this: actual parameter, return parameter, control link, access link, saved machine status, and local data, and temporaries. So this is the general activation record here. Now we will talk about one by one. The first is temporary. So we are talking about this temporary value. Temporary values such as those form that you at the time of the evaluation of expression, temporary values can be there, that can be in the form of register. Second, we have local data. Local data, you know that when a function is created, then there can be a local value, that data can be stored here. Third is the saved machine status. A saved machine status with information about the state of machine just before the call of the procedure. This information includes return address and content of register that were used by the calling procedure and must be restored when the return occurs. Fourth number, the fourth number is access link. We are talking about access link. An access link may be needed to locate data needed by called procedure by found itself in another activation record. Access link will be discussed further later in the next lecture. Fifth number is control link. So we are talking control link is pointing to the activation record in the caller. Next we have a space for return value, space for return value. So in the function, if any, again not all call procedure return a value, but if it one does, then it may be stored, and it can be stored in the return values area. And finally we have the lecture actual parameter. Actual parameter is used by the calling procedure. So commonly these values are not placed in the activation record, but rather in the register when possible. For the greater efficiency, actual parameter can be stored. So let us discuss about one example of activation record. Here we have this diagram. For this we want to create the activation record. So this is the activation. Initially we have main, and This is the downward growing stack of the activation record. Since A is a global space allocated, so A is space is allocated at the main. So A square bracket 11 we have taken here, total integer A, this is array is declared, and the main here we have here. So this is the first part. Next we will call this part, so R. So M, in from M we have the left hand side arrow here. This is R for read, so read array is here. So downward growing stack is here. So you can after just below main function we are adding here R and integer I. R integer I is the local variable from the read array function. So next we have here, so at the top of the stack we have the main function. So when control returns, activation record is popped after the main function. So once the read array is completed, this part will be popped, and after that the quick sort will be called. So that we will see in the next slide. So now R is activated here. So now what we will see next, this one is the next snapshot here. So R here dot dot indicates that this part is already popped here. So R integer I is popped here, and q1 comma 9 is called. So since we are calling quick sort, so we are writing the second frame is here. You can see here, here we have the activation record integer m comma n, because two parameter is also here. Q1 comma 9 we are writing here, integer I, this local variable is placed here. So control then reaches the call to q quick sort with the actual parameter 1 and 9, and an activation record for this call is placed at the top of the stack as figured in 6.c. Here you can see the activation record q contains space for parameter m and n, and the local variable I for the following general layout. So this was the general layout. You can this compared with this part here, and the dashed line indicates that partial tree. Go to the activation, this part is ended. This dotted line indicates that read array is already completed. After that obviously we have number of steps here for q1 comma 9 that we have completed, and so on. The next is the integer m comma 1 comma 3 is called. So notice that the space once used by the call R is reused by the stack. The space which we have just removed, this R read array, this part is removed and we have used by this quicksort part. So no trace of data local to R will be available q1 minus 9. So this particular R is not available here. So when q1 comma 9 returns, the stack again has only the activation record for the main. So we have only main part here. So several activation occur between the last two snapshots. These two last two snapshots. The number of activations are here, and we are not just drawing all the snapshot here. So activation P1 comma 3 1 comma 0 can be done. So you can complete it by yourself. So this part is known as the activation record, and how in the sequence it returns. Thank you.